Hello everyone, my name is Alex, I live in Japan, and this is my YouTube channel. On today's video, I want to talk a little bit about the JET program, and specifically today about why I left the program. If you've been on my channel before, you'll have seen I have some other videos with information about the JET program, and I always mention that I left the program, but I realized I never actually spoke about it, so I thought, let me just make a video. It's going to be pretty short, it's not a lot of reasons, and it's a combination of things. But just quickly before I get to yammering on, if this is your first time watching any of my videos, thanks for being here. But just to give you some background on my JET history, I was only on the JET program for 1 year. I got my placement in the northeast of Hokkaido, and I worked at 2 public schools. Now, I wasn't like many other ALTs who worked at the Board of Education office. I worked directly at my schools. So on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I went to one school, and then Tuesday and Thursdays, I went to my other school, and I was always at school. Even if I don't have classes, you stay at school. The weather changed so quickly, and it's so beautiful outside. Anyway, back to the video. So reason number 1 on why I left the JET program is distance/location, question mark. My placement was a rural, tiny fishing town in the north of Hokkaido. It was famous for fish and fresh sushi. We had a lot of wildlife there. I didn't get to see a bear, but apparently bears are pretty frequently walking around there. We also have deer, foxes, and tiny snowbirds. And I didn't see the snowbirds either, but I saw some deer and I saw some foxes. Where I was placed, I was the ALT for the high school. There was another ALT for the junior high school and elementary school. And the same thing for my second town that I visited. So I wasn't the only foreigner and I wasn't the only ALT, but I was pretty far from all of the other ALTs. And considering that I didn't have a car, it made it pretty difficult for meetups to happen. And besides that, the distance to any other major towns was also quite far, and I had to take the bus every time. I think if I had stayed on, I would have eventually gotten a car because it's much easier. But when I figured out and decided that I was only going to stay a year, I thought it was too much of a headache to try and get a car. So the fact that I was so far from, number 1, other ALTs, my friends, one of my best friends was all the way in Sapporo, which was 6 years. It felt like 6 years, which was 6 hours away by bus. And then also, if you want to do shopping, if you want to get anything major for your apartment, you're going to have to travel quite far. So it's not the worst case scenario. We had things around us, but it was quite inconvenient for me. If you see me moving around a lot in the video, please just know the floor is not comfortable at all. So it's just me trying to find a good place to sit. So it was definitely a beautiful town, and with every season, when you could see, for example, the snow, when you could see the cherry blossoms, when they eventually came to Hokkaido in May, it's quite beautiful. But distance-wise, it was a bit inconvenient for me. And with every long weekend or vacation that we got, I had to factor a big chunk of travel time. And I don't know about you, but adding a 6-hour bus trip one way and then another 6-hour bus trip back home really impedes on the plans that you have, and it just makes you feel like, okay, well then I can't actually do anything. So I think with enough planning, it's definitely possible, but for me and the places I wanted to see, the things I wanted to do in Japan, it wasn't a good fit. Reason number 2 is the climate/the weather. So it's very cold for most of the year. We receive like 6 or 7 months. 7 might be an exaggeration, but 6 is a good estimate. 6 months of snow in the winter. And the time before and after the snow melts is also cold. So you have a good period of maybe 8 or 9 months out of the year that you have to wear a sweater or a jacket, and I just couldn't do it. Summers there are great because they're not as humid as the rest of Japan, but I couldn't wait for like 3 months of reprieve after being cold for like most of the year. And I think it just came down to it's like a culture difference maybe, because I'm from South Africa. Even in winter, it's warm, we have the sun. So to adjust to a place where, first of all, it was temperature-wise so different, but also the sun didn't come out very often, and that really affected my mental state because I'm a child of the sun. I need to see the sun at least 5 times a week to make it through like mentally stable. And sometimes that just didn't happen. We had periods in winter where for the whole week, maybe the sun came out once or twice. And when it did come out, it was during the morning when I was in class. So I wasn't happy about that. The snow was stunning in the winter. And I think for the first month, I was completely like hard eyes with all of the landscapes that I was seeing around me. But it did wear off pretty quickly. And once you realize that the snow actually stops you from doing a lot of things, I started to become impatient for spring. And that's not a way I want to live. But to just wrap up the second point, when I tried to envision myself living in that location for longer than a year, it was very difficult for me to see the pros as more than the cons, because I was just very uncomfortable with the climate, which I think is funny because when people say that, it's because a place is too hot or too humid, but for me it was like, it's too cold. Got a blast! And then point number 3 has to do with the job itself. So in my other videos, I speak more at length about this. And if you know anyone on the JADE program, you can definitely go ahead and ask them about this. But the JADE program and the work that you're going to do on it differs a lot depending on the school that you go to. And in my case, I found the work ultimately unfulfilling. I didn't feel stimulated enough. I didn't feel like the English teachers were using me enough in class. I feel like I could have done so much more. And I think what really pushed me over the edge was when I consistently would ask to be more of a part of the classroom lesson or the activities that were happening. And usually I would get the response of like, oh no, it's okay. You just relax. You don't have to do that much. And thankfully that wasn't the case at both of my schools. I had polar opposites for schools. At the one, I was running up and down every day. The other one, I was mostly in the staff room. And if I was in the classroom, I was really just finding ways to pass the time. I felt like my skills were being wasted to some extent, and I couldn't connect with the students as well as I wanted to. And with my one school, the one where I wasn't really being utilized, I really felt like they weren't taking English seriously, which in all fairness, thinking back to it, I'm like, they're in Hokkaido, they're in the north. Most of the kids are not going to use English in their future. But even so, for the kids who actually want to learn, I think they were putting up unnecessary roadblocks, which ultimately added to all of the other options, and that was like enough to make me leave. And the last point, I guess number 4, would be isolation, which I think was a result of point number 1, 2, and 3. I felt quite far from all the other ALTs. I felt quite far from my friends. The weather was honestly just depressing me when it was cloudy day after day after day. And then I felt because I was not making progress at work, that started to affect how I feel about myself as a coworker or as an employee. And even with all that being said, I had some great experiences on the JADE program that I wouldn't have had if I didn't come on the program. So that's why I still recommend it. I think it can be a great introduction to Japan. I think you can meet some of your best friends that you will ever meet on the program. And it's a good taste of a different country, a different culture, and maybe even you can learn a new language while you're here. So I think the benefits do outweigh the cons, but what will ultimately keep you going is your reason for coming to Japan, your why or your goal. And I think if you stick to that close enough, you'll be fine. So even though I only did 1 year on the JADE program, I still recommend people to go on the program. If it's something you want to do, if you've been thinking about it for a long time, go for it. It's a different experience for everyone. And I hope this video was a little bit helpful, as well as my other videos, in giving you an idea of what to expect. All right. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in any other JADE videos, I have a whole playlist on my channel. And other than these videos, I do some vlogs as well. Have a great day or night wherever you are. Bye. Yeah. Okay. Need to stretch my legs. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know why I'm so nervous to make this video today. It's usually pretty easy to talk to the camera, but today my thoughts are just like no words, no communication.